recording this. We got a lot going on this week, but it's almost 4th of July. We thought we'd talk about patriotism.
Yes.
And what is patriotism? And should Christians be patriotic?
Yes.
But what is patriotism? We looked it up. We were talking about it, and I thought maybe Pat had something to do with father.
Potter.
And you said, well, you got it right,
Well,
basically.
well, it is right. Potter is P-A-T-R or something like that. F-A-T-R, closely related, is father in almost every Indo-European language, including Hindi and languages that are spoken in Persian, German, everything from India all the way to Iceland.
Okay, wow.
So including Greek. So apparently it's come patris is country or fatherland in Greek. So
yeah, so like you said, it indicates, so patriotism would be this connection between people that have a common ancestry and
a common nation. And back in the day, people felt a part of a nation which has a boundary, a common history, common language, usually a common religion or a system of religions, and a common government and a common history, right? So nations were big in the Bible. It speaks of nations, and we know what the nations are. Used to be when I was young, we had a very clear concept of nations, especially European nations. So you had English or white, spoke English, had a king. We knew we came from them, right?
Right.
Germans, Dutch they had dikes and those big whirly the mills, windmills, that actually were mills, and they wore wooden shoes and something like that. We knew nations,
distinct personalities.
Now the personalities of the nations are fading. The United States has never had a real clear personality as a nation, but it did have one thing for a long time, and it still does, even though it's not official, and that is the English language. It ties us all together, and a system of religions, primarily Christianity and Judaism. We have some, like Mormonism is kind of
offshoot of Christianity. But we basically call it Judeo-Christian ethics, right?
Right. Yeah. And though we don't have a common race, we have blacks, we have Hispanic, and we have
different kinds of whites.
Different kinds of European people, and Asian. So, but we do have a common language, used to have a common religious system, and a common government, and a common history. We know our history. We know how we got there. So we're like, and we are a nation, but we don't have that same old ancient idea of nation with one people, more of a racial thing, and a general common history. We all came from here and we settled here. Like the Russians, the Slavs, Germans, they all seem to come a common race, and they came from the same, and they had
from the same father.
Yeah, same father.
Yeah, but no longer that way. So now it seems like patriotism has more to do with being excited about your country.
Yeah.
And actually it has even gotten watered down more to be almost just excited about the 4th of July.
Well, notice everybody celebrates the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Do you know what we're celebrating the 4th of July?
Independence
from
England.
From England, that's right. And it was not an easy independence. It was an independence that had to be fought for and died for.
Yeah. And I think, and so patriotism also amounts to being happy for or appreciative for the men and women who are mostly men and women who have fought for us.
Yes.
Protect us as we speak.
Yeah. I think if you've been in the service, I was in the Army. My son Paul was in the Army. My dad was in the Marine Corps. We have a family, we either served or helped people to serve in the service. you have to have a certain amount of patriotism
To
to
serve.
really make it work well.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just in it for the money, though some people are, but but that's generally in peacetime. But in wartime, you might make some money, but you're going to be threatened. You're going to be put into danger. You know,
You're fighting for a cause, right? You're fighting to protect your fatherland. Yeah. To
Yes.
protect to protect something.
Yes, to
It hasn't
protect
gotten blurry though, right?
and to further the goals of the country. So we not only protect ourselves, as in the Vietnamese War, we were protecting another country, protecting South Vietnam from communist incursion from the north.
Yeah.
Essentially another country at the time. Now they've become one country, but
I liked what you said earlier when I asked the question: Is it compatible with the gospel to be patriotic? Well, you looked at it from different angles.
what were those?
Okay, I was setting you up.
Remind me.
You said, well, to be opposite of patriotic is
Yeah,
not.
we have. Okay, so your attitude toward the nation as a Christian, it seems to me you've only got about three. You only got three options. One is to be generally accepting and supporting of your nation if it goes to war, if it taxes people, if it has certain laws about the border. You know, we do things as a nation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, to be generally supportive of that.
Yeah.
Now you might be a pacifist in war, but generally you still have to. You got to do your part. You work in the farm, or you're a plumber, or whatever you do to do your part to keep the society going.
Yeah.
Okay, another option is like the Amish or the pure Mennonite or Amish, or what do we call that?
Quakers, the Amish.
Well, there's a word for that, but Anabaptist is to pull back and have your own government, your own nation. You say we're not a part. We live here, but we're not a part. There are varying degrees of that, and we've known people that did whatever they could to pull. They have their own community. They swap and barter rather than use money, so they don't get taxed so much.
Own what's the word for money? But they have
their own medium of exchange.
Medium of exchange,
and they just pull back, much as it might be suggested by 1 John 5:20, where it says, "We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the wicked one." Well, if you take that to the fullest extent, you pull back. The other thing is to be against, to be, for example, what are they? I think it's not universalist, but
Unitarian?
No, universalists. That is these guys, communists and one world people. They want to have one government. You don't have different nations. You have one government, and all the nations kind of dissolve under one government. And we know that as one world, and so that we know that toward the end of time, that will be that way. Both first under the Antichrist, and then eventually when Jesus comes, it's going to be that way too. There'll be one government, one nation, and there won't be all these little nations. But until that, we don't want to be one under the Antichrist. Well, so either you're for it, really against it, or just say that's fine. We're not of you, but we're going to have our own. You could live here in America and have your own community, your own system.
The thing that comes to mind as you're talking is it's interesting to me that patriotism still exists because that aspect of the father being of a fatherland, that has been so
ingrained.
No, actually the opposite. Like lately it has been so deteriorated, the idea of being of a father and having loyalty to your father and your
Yes.
ancestry and that
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
thing
that's
has been so
denigrated.
debased and
Yeah.
denigrated that to be patriotic seems to me difficult in these days.
Yeah, it's almost
And that's why it's been reduced
just,
to a celebration on one day, you know, and it's about.
but we do celebrate.
We do.
And one thing that we do celebrate, and that is part of our patriotism, is that as Christians, we have freedom to be Christians in this country.
Yeah.
So we are patriotic, not because everybody should be patriotic necessarily, but because we're patriotic because we can be Christians without fear of being thrown in jail. Or being persecuted for being Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it is now.
There are those of us who still remember that at least something that was purported that the early fathers of America were fighting for freedom of religion.
You bet. That's how we started.
Liberty.
People came over here.
Yeah.
Baptists. Baptists initially. Puritans were sort of Presbyterians, Pilgrims, and people came over here from England and eventually from Germany, other places, to be able to have their own religion, practice their own religion. And during those days, in the 1600s, religion was a function of government. Whatever nation you were a part of, you had a national church, just like there is in England today. The English clergy, if I'm not mistaken, are paid by the government because you have one religion, and your taxes are used to support the church, the state church, and that was back in the 1600s. That was the way things were, and so people didn't like that. They wanted to have their own religion, still get along with everybody, have their own religion.
Well, I wonder if the seeds of the demise of patriotism is in that idea of liberty. The more liberty we have, the less, as we get bigger, the less we have, the more our fathers become different. As we've been talking about, we've become varied and we have our own purposes, our own things that we fight for. And in such a big country, it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, it would be nice if everybody had the same language, same religion.
But it's hard in such a big country.
Well, certainly such a country that welcomes people from all over the world. And we do welcome them. Everybody welcomes them if they come gradually and with preparation and want to be assimilated.
Vetting,
assimilated. And so they want to be a part of things. That also means, for me, it means a couple of things. One is they want to learn English and speak English. And two, they want to be a part of the system that already is here. That is, they want to become plumbers or carpenters or teachers or millionaires, but they in the system. They don't want to set up another system. They don't want to set up communism or any other system. That they want to work within the system which we have. Exists a kind of a free market. It's a free market system, generally capitalistic, but not solely. But they want to be a part of that. I was thinking back, what is it? The biblical. What is biblical patriotism? And not Old Testament, because in the Old Testament you had the Jewish people, the Hebrew, the people of Israel.
Yeah, there was only one.
That was it, and then they took over, and God gave them this country, and they have their own setup. But as Christianity entered the world, and that is the faith in Christ Jesus came into the Gentile. It entered into the Roman-dominated world, the Romans. And a person like Paul, he recognized the system. You see in Acts, he talked respectfully to the kings, and he himself pled at least twice. He pled that he was a Roman citizen. Patriotic. He was a Roman citizen and claimed to have special rights as a Roman citizen. One was when they in Philippi, they grabbed him because the people were hollering.
Mhm.
And the Jews came and got them all riled up, and they were hollering against Paul and Silas.
Mhm.
And they threw them into prison. No, they beat them, took them and beat them and threw them into prison. And without a trial or anything, Paul said. So the next morning, it's a long story, but the next morning, the jailer says, look, the town fathers say, you can go now. You know, we're sorry you got thrown into prison. Go ahead and go your merry way. And Paul says, I don't think so.
Hmm.
He says, no, here we are. I'm a Roman citizen, and I was taken and beaten without a trial or anything. You tell them to come here and escort us out of town. And they did.
Yeah.
They were very kind because they knew that he had special rights.
Right.
And of course, at the end of the book of Acts, Paul claims he is about to be sent back to Jerusalem to undergo trial there,
Mm-hmm.
where he knew he would be killed.
Mm.
And he wasn't going to do that. He said, no, I claim as a Roman citizen, I can be heard by Caesar.
That's Caesar.
By the Caesar. And so he went by boat and got to Rome and was given a place to live and waiting to see Caesar.
Mm.
It doesn't end his life there.
Mhm.
We just see that.
Mm.
But he claimed to be a Roman. He was a Roman citizen because he was born in a special kind of town.
Mm.
Okay, Philippi was one of those towns.
I didn't know.
It's called a colony. It's a colony. So it has special. Everybody in there is a citizen of Rome.
Mm.
Now, all the people that are under the Roman Empire are under the dominion of Rome, but they're not citizens of Rome. See? And citizens of Rome had special treatments. And he was born in Tarsus, which had a special. It was a colony also. So he had a special standing as a citizen of Rome. So don't you think he was patriotic? He was glad when he was able to claim his rights. And that is the feeling of patriotism, is to be glad of how your country treats you, or the situation that your country protects for you.
Yeah. You know? There is a certain what is that called? Patriarchy, right? That is important for that. You feel covered. You feel like you are under the umbrella.
That's right.
Of protection. That's
right. That's why I always like in here where we are, we have the police. It used to be the sheriffs protected us. They, in the county, generally in America, your sheriffs protect everybody that's outside the town. Mm-hmm. In town, you have police, right? Mm-hmm. But I always thought the sheriffs, they were protect. You always felt like there was somebody you could call. Yeah. If there was a threat to you. So.
But it's interesting. You've brought up several times the aspect of using the ideas of a plumber or an electrician, utilities. There is a hierarchy. We always recognize hierarchy as soon as we need something done, right? We want the best plumber. We want the best electrician. Yeah. We automatically recognize a hierarchy. And there is a utility to having a nation that umbrella over us, whether or not we always agree with it. Being part of a system and being patriotic to that system, there is good in it. And I feel like Jesus recognized that system. Of course, when he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but there was a general, he didn't defer to them per se, but he went along with them. I guess that's kind of
what he went along with the Pharisees.
No, not the Pharisees, the Romans, like the system of government, the system of society during that.
Well, time. His famous declaration was, he says, here's a 50-cent piece. Yeah. Whose image is on that?
Exactly. Yeah.
And who's it talk about? And it says Caesar's, and ours does too. It says United States of America. Yeah. 50 cents. And so he says, well, give back to Caesar what's Caesar's. Yeah. And give to God what's God's.
And I guess I'm getting to the idea of that voting. I still believe in voting because I believe in putting 5 stars on the best plumber, right? We want to encourage the best.
Yeah, well, that's
system.
right. That's good.
And because we get utility out of the system, and it is a complex and a huge system. I wish it was smaller. It'd be nice to have it was still a confederacy of states rather than a huge conglomerate.
Plus we want the best,
oligarchy.
and we also want a general acceptance of who's in charge.
Mhm.
So when people know that, well, most people have voted this guy in or this woman in, they will say, so they're in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And let's wait until we have another election.
Yeah.
So to get a general agreement to work. Now that thing is falling apart now.
Yeah.
Where you get parties so that one particular party I can speak of, will not do anything to help the other party. Nothing. Even though it's obvious that it would be good if they cooperated in getting some laws passed and shaping laws. They do nothing. And that's bad, because what we need is a general cooperation so that there's a general consensus. A long time ago on this program, on our podcast, we talked about consensus. What is the wonderful thing that we want to live under in government is consensus. Okay, we all agree generally. We all agree that 55 miles an hour is a pretty good limit for on most highways. A speed limit. And we all agree that I don't know. There's some things we disagree on. I was telling your mother, I've told you all many times, on Sunday here in Morehead City, it was generally agreed that people didn't ply their trade on Sunday. Right. Nothing was open. Nothing was open. Restaurants were, maybe a few restaurants were open because people had to eat.
Yeah.
But they didn't have movies open. They didn't have, certainly not clothing stores or Walmart or anything like that. There was none of that open. But now the general consensus is, hey, if you want to go to church on Sunday, go. Me, I'm going to run my business. And that's the consensus, and we have to put up with it.
And that's the price of liberty, right?
That's right. We want to cooperate so we don't make trouble about everything that comes on. And I used to be that way. I don't think you got to make trouble about everything you disagree. No, you got to make trouble when it's time to stand up. But you want to go along generally if there's a general consensus, and you see there's no way to really stop it now. You got to go if it's possible,
and if
it's possible,
if it's not against your morals.
Yeah,
right?
For example, pacifism. Right. If you're a pacifist, some Mennonites are pacifists. And there are other religions where they don't believe in fighting war. And they have to, but what they have to do is they have to say, if the enemy invades the coast and they come in and they take over, we're willing to let God protect us. And if he doesn't, we'll go along. Just like the Jews went along with the Romans and had to submit. And if you like that, you can have those moral the qualms to follow, but in general, I would say that a Christian should be happy that we have freedom to practice our religion, freedom to preach, freedom to meet, freedom to promulgate the gospel wherever we feel that God is leading us. And that's a pretty rare thing. It's a pretty rare thing around the world that you don't have some regulation against preaching, teaching the gospel. We're having some problems here in the United States. There's been some problems with people, I think, unjustly prosecuted for praying in front of an abortion clinic, for example. Things like that. But generally, if you want to preach, you want to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, people can't tell you not to. This is America. This is America. And I'm happy. That's what I celebrate on July 4th. Now, I don't celebrate, I think some people do on July 4th, celebrate that we are the best, the strongest, nobody better challenges. I will beat the heck out of them. Now, that's a general, there has been that. And if you're in the service, you kind of tend to get that attitude.
Well, and that was the last thing I wanted to bring up is bring back the idea. We've talked about the world, right? And what is the world? And it seems to me it's hard to get away from the overlap, the Venn diagram overlap of the world and patriotism, right?
Yeah. Well, nowadays I'd say the world they're not all patriotic.
That's true.
So there is a worldly way of being patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that there are people, and I think a lot of there are people that claim to be Christians that really believe that Christianity and the nation and the Stars and Stripes are all bound up together.
Mm.
And that's why I really don't believe personally don't believe in putting the Stars and Stripes in a church.
Yeah.
You know, we're not celebrating in a church the country.
Right.
We're glad that we live in this country, but we just have one thing to celebrate in church, one person. We're not celebrating the country. But I understand what people do.
Well, there is some clash, though, between fathers, right? Who our father is. We don't want to lift the patriotism,
Right.
the being of the father of America.
That's right. That's
over
good.
the being our father in heaven.
That's right. I remember when I was young, and I said it on this program before, I just loved this TV show, Superman. And there's another Superman movie coming out. I'm interested in what it might be like. But Superman always started out talking about Superman fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. And behind him, there was a flag, you know. And so we had this feeling. And that feeling of patriotism, I think, can kind of replace the idea of submission and what am I calling responsibility toward God, submission, and to owe your life to God.
Fealty, right?
Fealty to God, to God the Father. That's our Father. And Jesus said, don't call anybody on earth your Father. And I think that's one thing he's talking about. Don't call anyone your ancestor, really. And of course, growing up non-Catholic, we see they call their guy their pastor father, you know, and then Jesus said not to. Well, but it can be applied to patriotism. Don't call the United States your church. Don't let that be. We don't want to let that be. And so there is a problem today, and I don't know if we have time to get off on it.
One last thing.
Well, that thing about being so patriotic that we get really committed to one way of government, to one party of government, to one bunch of people, to one set of ideas, that we spend a lot of time worrying about it, talking about
obsessing
it, even praying about it.
Yeah.
You know, and look at the news. Oh, why'd they do my guy this way? Oh, those guys. Oh, and I've made jokes about it here, but really, it should not be
Well, it's idolatry, right? To put those, we're talking about idolatry. To put that.
Yes, and think about Washington D.C.
Yeah.
How much idolatry there is there. You put men up, and these are great men. Washington, Jefferson. I was just looking the other day because as a kid, I saw this statue to General Meade. General Meade of the Civil War. He was a Union general that won the battle, didn't get beat in the Battle of Gettysburg. And there's a big statue of him, and I saw it's on the mall there. And my memory of it was angels around him. Well, there is an angel. There are angels kind of holding
him up.
They're locked arms with him. There's supposed to be courage, wisdom, some other things, valor, things. And then behind him, there's these wings that come over, and it's the angel of war on back behind him with his wings or victory, something like that. Yeah. And I think, man, people, you can get into that pretty heavy, honoring men when you're not thinking about who you really should be honoring, which is our Heavenly Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, not to put any of those great men down, but that's not who we should be honoring. But in America, on July 4th, we do honor a nation that allows us to be free.
Well, okay, real quick though, is it wrong to honor them? Can we honor our forefathers without without idolatry, without making an idol of them?
I don't know, statues. That's a hard one. You put a statue of someone out there.
Yeah,
It's hard not to think this person is a better
statue
person.
is an idol.
Yeah, because you're thinking this person is a better person than he really was. I mean, Lincoln was a great president, but he was just a guy.
Yeah.
And you make him 100 feet tall, and there's in the Lincoln Memorial, and he's a giant, and he's sitting there like a god, And you've got Martin Luther King. They just have a new statue of him. It's not that these guys weren't good guys, and blessed. We were blessed to have them at a key time, but to have a statue of them, we go back and look at. It's distracting. I think we have to be careful. And politics, in the same way, does distract us. Yeah. And our favorite politician can distract us, and we can get into arguments with people. Yeah. And sometimes I'm surprised that someone I know is a Christian will be on the other side politically. I go, how can you believe that? And they probably look at me and go, "You're going to go to hell like that." No. That we don't, but we think, how can it be? And it's distracting. You need to stay on the common beam of our allegiance to the Lord Jesus Christ, and render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar. When it's time to obey the laws, and be thankful that we live in a free country. Yeah, and be glad that Superman's fighting for us and not the other side.
Well, I suppose so.
I'm sorry. It's hard for me to avoid a joke when he floats by. Make him laugh.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I got some out of that. I'm sure some of you did too. And I think it's good to think about. And that's what Cloudburst is ultimately, is just you join us in thinking about these things that maybe we normally would just go by and just celebrate the 4th without even giving thought to any of this.
That's right.
So we'll see you next week.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence. Don't be too independent.